Thank you for listening to the Bladder Battle Podcast special series, I See in the Dark. This is going to dive deep into the perplexing disease, interstitial cystitis. This podcast is intended to bring awareness and create conversation around the illness by providing possible remedies, tips for managing the disease, how to show support, and so much more. This podcast is not intended to be a medical alternative for physician care, nor to treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. Always consult with your physician for professional medical advice. Today's episode is sponsored by West Coast Mint, a D-Mannose company and excellent resource for navigating life with interstitial cystitis. Use promo code BB15, that's B as in bladder, at checkout to receive 15% off your next purchase of a West Coast Mint D-Mannose. Today, we are talking all about an amazing remedy for UTI prevention and reduction of bladder inflammation. This wonderful supplement is known as D-Mannose. Today, joining me is Rochelle Stern, founder of a West Coast Mint. Rochelle, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, you are my first guest, and I think this is the perfect way to start it off because this was the first supplement that I found to really help me when I started going through my journey with interstitial cystitis. So I'm very happy to have you on, and I'm so glad that we connected through Instagram, of all places.
I know, me too. Me too. I think it's great to meet you, and it's great to meet other people who have been dealing with this issue and are creating awareness. And I'm happy to hear that D-Mannose has helped you.
So before we get into West Coast Mint and D-Mannose, I kind of want to hear a little bit about your story and your diagnosis with interstitial cystitis. So kind of how old were you when you were diagnosed, and what were some of your initial symptoms?
Mm-hmm. So it hit me in early 2014. I was just over 35 at the time. I have two young kids. So at the time I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I think there was a lot of stress going on, and I was really healthy before this. Or so I thought. But so I think it's all the stress. I was working full time, taking care of a young family, and I got a UTI. And I really didn't think much of it. I didn't think it was a big medical event or a big deal. So I took antibiotics, and I didn't know better that they weren't culturing the urine. They were just they're just doing the dipstick and saying, okay, you have a UTI, here's some antibiotics. And I didn't know anything medical. So I just did whatever the doctor told me to do. And then I got rid of that one UTI. Then I got another one on the heels of it. And that's when everything kind of fell apart, where they did, again, just the dipstick. And then this time the antibiotics didn't work. So they just prescribed another round of antibiotics. But this whole time, I didn't realize they weren't actually testing the urine and sending it for culture.
Wow.
I didn't know there's a difference between urine analysis and a urine culture. So urine analysis is just where they do the dipstick, and then the full culture is when they actually grow it for 2 to 3 days. So I didn't even know that was happening. And they kept so then after they just kept telling me, listen, you don't have an infection. We don't know what's wrong. They kind of made me feel like I was this rare case that they've never seen before. It was really bizarre. And so I got really, really sick, obviously. And then finally, it got sent for culture, and it grew out a massive infection. And so it was a poorly treated UTI that triggered it for me. So eventually, but I was going weeks like this, like about 6 weeks with this UTI that I didn't know I had. So finally, and they realized I wasn't taking the correct antibiotics in the first place. So they eventually put me on antibiotics, but it wasn't still the best option for me. And so I ended up seeking out some professionals and experts in this field, like almost right away. I found them online, and I didn't waste any time. I knew the heart of this for me was a really, really bad infection.
Yeah, that's just awful that, they wouldn't actually do the culture and send it in. And it's kind of similar to what I went through. I got put on the wrong antibiotics as well for a long time. And I do think that really had an effect along with stress. Stress is such a big part of this disease, I think. Well, what were some of your symptoms? I mean, I know a lot of people can relate to what a UTI feels like, but they can be very different depending on what bacteria you have. So what were some of those symptoms, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you're so right. My first UTI was really just typical, and was just a little bit of frequency more than normal, but I was sleeping okay for the first UTI. So I didn't really treat it like a big deal. I didn't take it seriously either. I just took the antibiotics because, you're a woman. You think, well, this stuff happens. And you can't possibly think that a chronic condition can arise of just one UTI. I was completely fine before and everything and happy. The stress in my life was a good stress. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed my work. I have a great family. It was just, it was just a lot for me, I guess, at the time without realizing it. But then the poorly treated UTI, that was a whole range of different symptoms because it kept festering and getting worse and worse. So it was extreme frequency where I had to go to the bathroom every 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
24 hours a day. So no sleep. It was horrible.
My gosh. Yeah.
Horrible.
That really disrupts your life, your work, everything.
Mm-hmm. And I could, so right. And then the pressure, and there was blood, everything. It was so bad. And I couldn't believe that doctors were telling me you don't have an infection. It was so bizarre. And that some suggested I just needed to, keep myself busy with other things. It was so bad. How poorly diagnosed something like this could be.
Yeah. I think that's a big key is just the thing that upsets me the most is just the poorly diagnosing of the disease and, UTIs in general. Because for the longest time I was told I didn't have one. And then I believed that for a while. And then I went back and looked at some of my cultures and they did come back with bacteria. So I'm like, how can you tell me that wasn't an infection? I'm very confused. So I really think it's just letting something go too long, giving you the wrong antibiotic has a lot to do with it. But I had only ever had 1 or 2 UTIs in my entire life. And I knew that they were UTIs and I was a kid. So, but as you get older, you're like, is this normal? They always say women get them more frequently. So it's hard to really know, if you're, I was kind of made to feel like I was paying too close attention to my body and maybe be stressing out about it a little too much. But I mean, I think you have to get to the bottom of it. And that's what's so frustrating about this condition because nobody really understands it, unfortunately. So
Right. But we're getting there. I think more awareness is come out. Ever since I got sick, there's way more information out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you're so right. I remember a few years ago, it was not much. There was a little bit. I remember there was Montreal Healthy Girl. She was out there with her information, and I think Icy Angel was another one that I used to watch both of them. So they were really helpful with a lot of my healing, at least, especially with emotional support that I knew, because I didn't have any friends that had this. No one knew what was wrong. So it was really isolating. And I think a lot of people first going through these symptoms, they feel isolated at first.
I always say like the stages of acceptance. They say you go through all the different phases of that. And I didn't really understand that until I went through this. And I was angry and I was sad and I went through every phase and it was upsetting. But I knew that I was just trying to accept what was going on, but that I knew there was something wrong. And so it really made me push and follow up with my doctor. And I went for every test, paid lots of money, but I just wanted to make sure that everything was negative and that I wasn't they weren't missing something, because that's kind of how I felt about it. It's not normal to have painful urination or kidney pain or
100%.
Any of those frequency, urgency. It's not normal to have that every day. So there's an underlying reason, and that's what I really believe. But it has to come with more research and just better protocol.
Yep, I completely agree.
So now I kind of want to get into some of the remedies that when you were going through all of this, kind of before you found out about D-Mannose, what were some of the other remedies that helped you?
So thankfully, after I got rid of the massive infection, I still had symptoms. I think it just did so much damage in my bladder. And at the time, the only option available for a test was the urine culture, a comprehensive urine culture, which shows low levels of bacteria, and then the broth culture. So I go way back before microgen or any of those other DNA sequencing next generation testings. So it wasn't as helpful back then to diagnose a low grade or biofilm infection. But after I felt I got rid of that massive infection, and I guess in the big scheme of things, catching it after 6 weeks or so is not bad. I mean, people go for years like that. So at the time, I thought it was horrible, but 6 weeks wasn't too bad in terms of hopefully reversing some of the damage, but there was severe damage to my bladder. I still had much of the symptoms. So I seeked out some alternative care. And that's where I started to get into some different remedies in order to just get my body back into balance.
That's a great route. You got to go back and think, what do we have that's accessible naturally? I think we just have to think back to our roots here. And I know a big thing is about inflammation. So did you take anything that sort of reduced some of that inflammation in your bladder, perhaps like turmeric or ginger? Or I know some people can't take that because it actually creates more of an issue, but some people can. So did you focus around anything like that?
I did. And I think the key takeaway is because I was under the guidance of a really, really good alternative care practitioner, he had me take the right supplements at the right time for me. And I think that's crucial. That's something I really, really want to emphasize to people, is that something that might not agree with you right now might be beneficial later. So order is very important when recovering from something like this. For example, you want to get rid of the underlying infection first before you start taking supplements that coat the bladder and that heal the gut, because first you want to actually get rid of any pathogens that might be there. So that was the route that I took. So I did D-Mannose, obviously, when it was one of the first things suggested to me by an alternative care practitioner. And I found that really helped calm things down, especially around events that might trigger an increase in symptoms. But then my body was just wiped from all the antibiotics and stress. So he sees this a lot. So he put me on a Candida Cleanse.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where he rotated very specific supplements for quite a few weeks to help get rid of any systemic Candida in my body, which in turn will get rid of it in my bladder and just bring my body back to balance. So I took quite a few of Candida Cleanse supplements. Was Pau Darko, olive leaf extract, oil of oregano, those type of anti-Candida supplements. He also did have me on anti-inflammatory supplements like turmeric, and thankfully that did agree with me. And I think it does really, really depend on taking a very high quality supplement. Not all brands are created equal. And so that's a big part of it too. You want to make sure you're taking one that has great absorption and that's really made with quality ingredients.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point that because the supplement industry is huge. There's so much out there. And although, some of these companies do create very high quality ingredients and have some information available and even education on their sites, I think going to a natural path to kind of prescribe you the right supplements and when to take them and creating sort of a schedule for you is very crucial in being able to really get the most benefit out of taking those. Because I know so many people that they have a cabinet in their kitchen and it's just full of all these different types of supplements. And I'm like, do you actually take all those? Do you know what they all do? Is that really right for you? And this can go for any illness and any ailment that you're dealing with. So I like that. I think that's really good advice for anybody that, especially those who have IC, that have gone to a urologist or a urogynecologist. maybe you want to see what else is out there, what other options would be to go to a naturopath and really get that recipe for your supplements and what you should be taking.
Yeah, exactly. They're balanced with Western medicine as well because they use lab tests too. So if they do certain tests to check your hormones or to check for parasites or gut bacteria, those sort of things, and they could really fine tune the regimen for you. I know. So I did some stool testing, and the testing actually shows susceptibility with natural herbs as well as pharmaceuticals. So you have a choice in those situations, which is great. And sometimes the herbs are even stronger than the pharmaceuticals, at least for long term, to get rid of certain pathogens like that. But this way you have a choice, and they're making it as scientific as possible. I know one of the practitioners I saw, he practices traditional Chinese medicine in addition to integrative medicine. And he had me on at first an antibacterial herb, and it helped a lot.
Wow.
So sometimes, yeah, that was one of the first things he gave me when I came to his office, telling him I had this horrible infection and I still felt like it was there. So he really hit it at highest dose, and it really, really helped. It stopped a couple of the symptoms.
That's amazing. Plants heal. So I'm a huge advocate for, natural healing, not always jumping to pharmaceuticals, although, certain situations warrant, antibiotics. But for something that's so mysterious and so hard to understand, like this condition, it's really good to just seek out all options.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, mine was definitely an integrative approach. I needed the antibiotics that you can't get rid of an infection otherwise, that you need. You need antibiotics. I was put on natural biofilm busters, so the antibiotics work better. You adding in probiotics, but the right type of probiotics. I had the practitioner rotate them as well. So like I said, it's again, taking the right supplements at the right time in conjunction with anything you're doing with Western medicine. You want to combine everything. But yeah, I'm definitely for everything, and even pain management. There was at one point with my issue where I had severe pain, and I was taking some nerve medicine for it, and it helped. It helped me eat better, and it helped my body recover until I could wean off of it. So I think that's important for people to know that I think those things are okay. You need to, pain is terrible. You can't function with it. So I'm really for it. And, you do what you can to manage your symptoms, and then you need to work on the healing. And it's a lot of work with diet,
right?
Eating so clean all the time, but you can do it. It was hard. All the grocery shopping and making my own meals and really sticking to it. Low to no sugar, no gluten. But otherwise, I ate pretty balanced. I ate low meat. I didn't go full vegan. I tried. It just didn't work for myself. I know some people, it's very effective. For me, it had the opposite effect. So I ate the highest quality meat that I can get and just ate very small portions of it.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to do what's best for their own body type, I think. And I think another factor for me was I think my adrenals were just fried from all the stress. Yeah. And I think most people would probably experience that. And then if you have, low adrenals, you need to eat well. You need to nourish your body.
Adjusting your diet and doing all those things, it can be a lot of work and a lot of pressure, but it's amazing when you do those changes and you see that they're working.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just that alone is very uplifting, and just, trying different things. For me, I've been vegetarian for 8 years. So I was like, what more can I cut out? I made a joke about it. And, but then I realized that I was eating too much spicy food and all these, inflammatory foods that were making it worse. So, then I had to really dissect my diet, and now I have it down to such a science that it's easy for me to go out to eat. I know what's going to be easy for me to pick at a restaurant, what can be avoidable, things like that. So it takes a little bit of work, but when you see that it does work, it just pays off so much just to get that relief. And, there's hope. You have to look at it like these little achievements and reward yourself for when you do figure out the perfect mix. And it can change too. And that's an important thing to kind of bring up, is that it's always changing. So what might work for you for 90 days, it could change again. And you might have to readjust and really fix our bodies. We get so used to everything that we eat and what we take. So we have to be constantly improving and changing. So it's a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And I give people so much credit. I know so many people doing this, and they're doing it well. They're sharing recipes, creating cookbooks. So they're doing it. And I know it's a lot of discipline. So a lot of respect to everybody doing that.
So after you found out about D-Mannose, how did that influence you to create your own company, first of all, and source your own D-Mannose? How did that all come to fruition?
So that happened because I was taking so much of it myself. I was doing a lot of research on the various brands just to try to find the best one for myself. And that's when I stumbled on the fact that companies currently do not have to disclose where a product is sourced, just where it was packaged or made. So I found out most of the D-Mannose on the market is sourced from China.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And they don't have to say that. So if the package is made in the USA, that's technically correct because it was packaged in the USA, and that's legally right to say. So they don't have to say where it's actually sourced. But to me, sourcing is the most important part of the product. Now, and just a side thing, I don't want anything, people are taking that. And I, because I'm in this industry, I know some of the companies based in China that do supply the D-Mannose. They're clean facilities, at least some of them, but there is a difference between that kind of D-Mannose and then the D-Mannose that I found out is the best on the market, which is sourced from the EU. From Ireland, and currently they have a new facility in Finland. It's just a different process, and they do have different regulations.
Yeah. China has just different regulations for everything. We have different standards in our country, just like Europe has different standards. So really understanding that, and a lot of people don't know that, is crucial to finding the right and best quality product.
Exactly. And to me, if you're not saying where it's sourced, you're kind of saying. And if you're hiding it, why are you hiding it? You should, if you're creating a product, you should be proud of it from end to end. So that because I had trouble finding the highest quality, especially in the US, I found most of the European sourced D-Mannose was typically sold in Europe. And so it just one thing led to another. And my husband even made a joke. He goes, "Why didn't you just make your own?" You're
like, watch me.
Yeah, right. And so I think before this illness, there's no way I would do something like this. But I think after my illness, I spent a lot of money on the practitioners, on the supplements, on the healing. It was a lot. It's not cheap, unfortunately, but well worth it. To get your health back. And that's also, I'll get back to that part of the inspiration for why I want to share information on my platform. I feel a lot of this information should be free. People shouldn't have to scramble for money or dig into their savings to learn basic information. Like I know you and I were just discussing before, a lot of people haven't heard of D-Mannose or other simple supplements that can actually help certain symptoms. So that's another factor in the company. But the D-Mannose specifically, I just became inspired. Why not create my own? After going through, I spent all this money on my health. Why don't I just take a chance, take the rest, a little bit of our savings, and launch a business? And I think it's something with this illness. I think it's bittersweet. At the end of it, when you start recovering, you have a different attitude towards life. And I took bigger risk than I would have normally hadn't I gone through this.
I think, that has a lot to say. And even for me, I would have never started a podcast probably if I had never gone through this. Yeah. You just find a new sense of self and inspiration. And even though it's something negative, you really turn it into a positive experience for not only yourself, right, but you're helping so many people. So that's an incredible story. And I think that's awesome. And, that's just so great that you did it. Not a lot of people would do that. So you got to be proud of yourself there for just initiating it and going for it.
Thank you.
It looks like you're doing really well. And I saw that you've partnered with a couple other companies. So kind of talk a little bit about that.
So after I was going through all of this, some of my practitioners, the TCM practitioner, I have another one. He helped me with some ozone treatments. I've had so many practitioners, but they also have other patients that have IC. And so each of them were asking me, what else are you doing to get better? And then I had some people calling me and contacting me directly for information. And so this was trying to help as many people as I can. So I decided to create a platform. And then that's where I could share information as to what's been helping me in terms of diet, and at least share names of practitioners, start a community of other websites that can help people. Just be a main resource so people could spend more of their time healing rather than scrambling like I had to do when I first got sick with this. So that's ultimately my goal there. And then obviously now have the D-Mannose products. So one thing led to another. And then because I was selling the D-Mannose and also recommending other high quality supplements to people, I decided why not fully partner with these wonderful companies and showcase their products directly on my site to make it easy for people to purchase everything in one place. And they know it's vetted. They don't have to go on Amazon and search and then for a million aloe supplements to pop up and and try to figure out this. I've done the research, and they can be sure that whatever I suggest is the highest quality.
Right. And I love that you have Desert Harvest on there. I take that every day. Super helpful. And I didn't find out about that until after I started taking D-Mannose. So that's a really great segue into learning about that, because they're also doing really incredible work themselves. And they created that because they had IC. So it's amazing. So that's awesome that you're creating a whole network and just a resource that's all in one area. It's a one-stop shop. I think that's great. It makes it easy, takes the stress out of really Googling and searching, and it's just endless. And there's so much misinformation out there. So now people can look to you as a viable resource, that you've done the research and you've spent years dealing with this.
Exactly. Thank you. And they're wonderful companies. I know Desert Harvest, they do a lot of work. They're at the ICA does a walk every year in San Diego, and they sponsor it. So they're really, really involved, and they truly care about their customers. So they were definitely on my top of my list to partner with. So I was really excited that I could do that. And all of the companies, there's a tea company, Buddha Teas, they're phenomenal. It's all organic tea. And even the soap company, Dr. Bronner's, they have a great reputation here in San Diego, where they take really good care of their employees. They get amazing supply sources where they pay them fairly and well, and they don't compromise. So everything that I looked for when I created the D-Mannose is what I'm looking for when I'm partnering with a company as well.
That's great. And those are all excellent companies. I like all of those products. And even kind of going on the ICA, I will be having a guest on an upcoming episode. She is a team lead, and she is just taking this whole thing by storm and really trying to push for a change in legislation. So I'm very excited to talk to her about that and learn more about the IC Association, because it's a great resource. And the walk is a great way to raise funds so that we can get some more research into this whole mysterious illness.
Yes, absolutely. That's fantastic. I love hearing about it. I love hearing stories about people taking the lead and encouraging others to join, whether it's family or other people with IC. It's amazing to see the events grow from year to year.
I didn't know anything about the walk, so this is a great way to find out about so many different things going on in the community around the illness. So if you could summarize for me in like a sentence or two, what is your mission for West Coast Mint, and kind of what's the future?
So I guess there's two parts to it. Is one, as a supplement company, where we differentiate with end-to-end quality from sourcing all the way through to packaging. So our goal is obviously to be transparent in an otherwise unregulated supplement industry. And then the second part of the company is to create awareness and help break the stigma about UTIs, pelvic health, and IC, getting the conversation going so we can help each other heal.
That's great. I think a lot of people going through this can align with that. I really appreciate you being on the show today and for sharing your story and just kind of the whole confusing process that you went through. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it was great hearing about your, mission behind West Coast Mint and how you created it. So I really appreciate you stopping in on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to my audience for taking the time to listen to the Bladder Battle Podcast special series, I See in the Dark. So I will catch you next time right here on the Bladder Battle Podcast.